Wednesday. Word. Wednesday. Word. Wednesday. Word.
And we are live. What's going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live? It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Wednesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. And if it is Wednesday, you should know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday Word. That's Wednesday Word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is acceptance. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topic. So, what do I mean by the topic acceptance? What I mean when I say the topic acceptance, my screen is jumping all over the place right now, but what I mean when I say the topic acceptance is how we can move to a place that focuses on only the actions that we can control and begins to disregard the actions that we cannot control. So, as always, I have three tools that I want to share with the first row tonight on acceptance. Let's jump straight into it. Tool number one when it comes to acceptance is take accountability for triggers. What's going on, brother Damien? What's going on, Karina? Or hola, Karina. But as always, I try to pick the most powerful tool. And when I was thinking about this concept of the things that we can control and acceptance, I really started thinking about the excuses that we make to not accept the things that are in our control and to not accept who we are in the moment. Last week's topic was about leaning into who our identity is, leaning into who we want to be and who we're striving to be. This week is a continuation of this identity series that I'm on in regards to acceptance, accepting the areas that we have control of. And so taking accountability for triggers is huge when it comes to acceptance. And the reason it's so huge is because often we will make excuses for why we choose to do certain things. And when you start taking accountability for everything, including your triggers, which it's not everything in the sense of that person ran the red light and that's on me for not looking. Yeah, I could have looked both ways, but overall, that person ran the red light. But what I'm talking about is like that person, think about when we were kids, that person said my mama's breath stink. And so I got to fight him because that's a trigger. Don't nobody say anything about my mom. Well, taking accountability for that trigger says what it does is it says, I'm going to remove what everybody else is doing as the cause to what I am choosing to do. I'm going to completely eliminate that. And so now what I do when I eliminate that excuse is I put myself in a space to where, okay, that person said something about my mother, and the person that I am choosing to be is a person who beats you up because of that. And then you can start having that conversation with yourself. Is that even who I want to be? Like, why am I so sensitive about somebody saying something in regards to my mother, especially, back in the day, I grew up when kids used to bag, but especially when I know that what they're saying is not true. Is it the fact that what they're saying is not true that bothers me, or is the fact that they're saying it about my mom and I just simply don't like it? Is that what's bothering me? But being able to take accountability for what we call our triggers, not saying that we don't have triggers, we all have triggers, but taking accountability for them is how you begin to dissolve those triggers. I remember a long time ago, my oldest son, he was maybe 2, maybe 3 years old. I remember at one point, a person that his mother was involved with in a relationship was just poking the bear. That was the Billy Rowe bear. They were just poking him, and I understood that there were things that person was saying to me that were triggers of mine that would cause me to act out and probably cause harm to that person. I understood that, but I understood why they were doing it. And because I understood why they were doing it, I didn't act out. I didn't lash out. I didn't move to violence. Because the overall goal was, okay, if I can get him to react based on his triggers, if I can get him to react, what will happen is that reaction that he takes will cause him to lose custody of his son. The problem with that is my priority irregard of my triggers, my priority was keeping custody of my son and making sure his father was not incarcerated to take care of him. That was my priority. So, irregardless of all the triggers and all the excuses and all the reasons that are excuses that I was given to lash out and physically attack this person, I didn't take any of them. And I remember, and I didn't understand this then, but I do understand it now. But I remember back then I said to the person, hey, it is clear to me that you are looking for a button to push on me. What's going on, Bruce? You're looking for a button to push on me. The problem is the only button that you could push that would lead me to physically harm you is here with me, and that is my son. He is my number one priority. So because he's my number one priority, there's no button you can push to cause me to compromise that priority or that order of priority in my life. And so taking accountability for triggers, it's a lot like that. Being able to understand the aspect that, hey, we all have triggers, but we choose our reactions to those triggers. Triggers, again, allow us to blame the reaction on circumstances rather than choice. When you move away from blaming circumstances, if I only would have got my check sooner, if I only would have had $2 more, if I only would have, said I love you more, if I only, all these things, when you remove your triggers from, or you remove your mind from blaming the circumstances of the situations that surround you and that you're involved with, and you move them into a place where it is a decision to be, number one, in that environment, but number two, how you interact in that environment, all of a sudden triggers are inert. They no longer have power and they no longer move you to react. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain things like, if you're, for instance, if you're underwater and you're running out of breath, your natural reaction is to try to get back to the surface. Obviously, that trigger makes sense. That's a survival instinct. But there is a difference between a survival instinct and a trigger. I know this because I grew up with an extreme temper that I developed quite well for decades. And so I was always very confrontational. And in some ways, I'm still very confrontational, but I'm a lot more pragmatic in the way that I approach the confrontation. I'm not as volatile, I guess I should say, as I used to be when it was like, oh, you want to fight? Let's fight. Oh, you want to go? Let's go. Oh, you got a problem? Let's solve it. Now it's just like, hey, if you have a problem, that's your problem. I'm not going to not say anything because that's just not who I am. But if you have a problem, then that problem is for you to solve. Please don't bring that over here because then I will physically protect myself if you bring that problem over here. Like, that's how I've moved. But before, that wasn't Billy. Before it was like, oh, you got a problem? Come over here. I'm gonna knock that problem out your head for you. Don't worry about it. But taking accountabilities for our trigger, again, it makes us 100. It makes us take 100% responsibility for how we act. And I specifically didn't say react. How we act. Taking that accountability for your trigger, you will never, I can tell you, if you are not willing to take accountability for your triggers, and I don't use absolutes very often, you will never, ever truly reach acceptance of who you are. If you're unwilling to take accountability for your triggers, it might be 1%, it might be 2%, it might be 3%. But if you're not willing to take accountability for your triggers, you're not in 100% acceptance of who you actually are as an individual. So that's tool number one. Tool number two, when it comes to acceptance, I almost said taking accountability for your triggers, but tool number two, when it comes to acceptance, is understand the truth of your control. And this is not just in regards to accountability. And I'm going to say something here I'm probably going to say twice. The truth is you have control over the action, not the consequence. Let me say that again. The truth of our control is that we have control over the action, but we do not have control over the consequence. And we talked about this a little bit. I don't know. I think it was last week in Lean In about the variation of or varying degrees of crimes, first degree, second degree, third degree, right? But a lot of times what happens for us is we don't understand that us controlling us really is control is probably the wrong word now that I'm thinking about it, but us controlling our decisions, us making choices for ourselves, has no direct correlation. We would like it to, but it doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation to the consequences, good or bad. I use consequences in positive and negative, um, that come. And this happens, and the fact that we think it does shows when people disappoint us. So let's say I do something really extravagantly nice for my wife. Let's say, I take her to a really nice dinner, I buy her flowers, I'm whining and dining her, I'm treating her like the queen she is, right? And we get done with all that, and she's like, all right, babe, thanks for a good night. I'm about to go out with the girls now. Burp, and she's gone. The truth is I had control over whether or not I wined and dined my wife, took her to a nice dinner, bought her flowers, romanced her, and all those things. The consequence, however, I don't, which I would hope, I'm hopeful that the consequence is my wife's going to be really turned on. We're going to have a good evening. We're going to lead to a good night, do grown folk stuff, right? That's what I'm hoping from the consequences of positive consequences. But the reality is maybe my wife had other plans, or maybe she's not as wine and dine as I thought she was. So she's going out to hang out with her girls. Not that my wife does that, but if that's what she does, that's the consequence. And to me, it's a negative consequence. Like, yo, I just spent all this time with you, and I really put a lot of effort into this, and I feel like it's not, uh, that effort is not being reciprocated. Again, that reciprocation is an expectation of a specific consequence to the choices that you've made. But that reciprocation is not guaranteed. And again, that's what eventually leads to disappointment. Like, yo, I'm doing what I think is right, and I'm not getting the reciprocated results that I want. Now, part of that, you can go to the Wednesday word where I said communicate, and you can work through that. But the other part of that is understanding that your control is what you're choosing to do, is those actions. And we think that if we do good things, only good things will come to us, and that's just not, when you look, like, zoom out of your life and look at the world as a whole, you can see people do good things. Maybe by society standards they do good things, and not always good things happen to them. That's just the way of the world. And when you zoom back in, you feel like it's only you who's getting those negative consequences. Wait a minute, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm paying for this, I'm paying for that. Here's a really good example. I'm going to work, I'm showing up on time, I'm doing my work, I'm excelling, I'm exceeding the performance of my peers, and they're laying me off. What? All of a sudden, you realize that, hey, my truth is that the control that I have is only in those actions. So the question is are you doing the actions that you really want to do? Or are you trying to do the actions that are going to lead to getting you a consequence, good or bad, that you think you will get from the action? And here's the thing, at the end of the day, you don't have control over that consequence. You don't. That consequence is a derivative of whatever that consequence originates from the choices of others, from the happenstance and circumstances of the world. It is not a derivative necessarily of your actions. Now, I don't say this in absolute, because I do understand that there are things you can do to encourage a good consequence. However, I just want to really nail this home. That good consequence is not guaranteed. So understand the truth of your control. Don't set yourself up for disappointment, for failure, and then the effort mode when it's like, well, shoot, I might as well just do whatever I want to do because I'm doing all the things right and I'm still not getting what I want. So what's the point? That's tool number 2 for those of you who are listening. Tool number 3 when it comes to acceptance is acceptance is your superpower. And I think for a long time, when I would hear the word acceptance, I kind of associated it with surrender. Like, you're just accepting where you're at. And I associated with like complacency. I always associated acceptance with kind of like this negative thing. Every once in a while, peaceful, but for the most part, it was like this weak minded uh concept of like you're just going to accept that. And go back to the somebody talking about your mama. Acceptance is your superpower. To accept that you know who your mom is, and you know what your mom has and has not done to the best of your child ability. um, you can accept that and move on and allow that to be that person's situation, allow that to be that person's drama or that person's bad day, but it doesn't have to be yours. Acceptance is not defeat. It's not, again, waving the white flag and saying, okay, I surrender, I submit, I'll give you whatever it is you want. No, acceptance is simply saying, I know who I want to be. I'm choosing to be that person. I accepted what I did. I accept that I wanted to do that. Even if not overall in the long picture or in the big picture of who I am, maybe I don't want to do that as Billy, like the inspirational speaker. But in that moment, I can accept that that's what I wanted to do because I chose to do that. And that's where acceptance becomes a superpower. You sacrifice because you chose to. You quit your job because you chose to. You won because you chose to. Choices that lead to what we are, I'm sorry, our choices lead to the actions that we choose, if that makes sense. Our choices that we choose, our choices lead to the actions that we choose. We don't do an action without a choice behind it. A lot of people say I reacted, and that's why I'm kind of keeping reactions out of this. Oh, I just reacted. um no, you made a choice and then you acted. Your choice was, it started with your choice and then you acted. Somebody could have done something, absolutely, before you made your choice, but you made a choice and then you acted. And that's really what tonight's topic of acceptance is about, is bringing in that acceptance as a superpower for yourself, realizing that you're not waving a white flag, giving up defeat, or signaling that you're defeated, but understanding that every action, not reaction, every action that you make, there's a choice behind it that comes before that action. So that's what I have for you guys this evening. Excuse me, really quick, I want to go over the top, or the three tools for the first row one more time in regards to acceptance. Tool number one is take accountability for triggers. Again, you have the ability to work through your triggers, but at the end of the day, don't allow your triggers to be an excuse for how you are choosing to make choices on who you are. Tool number two is understand the truth of your control. You control the actions, not the consequences. I cannot say that enough, and it hurts my heart that I have to say it, because it's almost like I'm telling myself, no matter what your choices are and the actions that you make because of those choices, at the end of the day, we don't control the consequences. And the faster we can accept that, the better choices we can make, because we don't become reactive to those choices being, oh, well, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm going to start making different choices. Hate, hate, hate. And then tool number three is acceptance is your superpower. Again, it's realizing that you did what you wanted to do. And because you did what you wanted to do, your superpower is that you're not defeated, but you're actually taking the actions that you want to take. So that's what I have for you guys this evening. As always, with the Wednesday word, I have a story that I like to share, something that got me thinking about this particular topic. And it was interesting because I was reflecting kind of like on life. I was like all the way back at 16. I'm 42 years old. I'm all the way back at 16 and kind of reflecting on life, how it's played out, where I'm going, what I'm doing, and so forth, right? Um, and when I look at the moments where I was reactive, where oh, well, I'm normally not this person, but you pushed me to be this person. I normally wouldn't do that, but I did that because you did this, or I did that because they did this, whatever it may be. I started thinking about all these times, and I it really hit me when I was actually thinking about a specific thing, but I don't want to share because I don't want to get in trouble for using the person's name. But I was thinking about a specific relationship, and how I was in the relationship, but not in the relationship. Like I wasn't fully vested in the relationship. And it was very interesting to be in this relationship and then see, like, as you're reflecting, like, oh, well, I did that because they did this. And then I see why I did this. And I stopped myself in that reflection and said, wait a minute, regardless of what this person did or didn't do, or could have done and should have done and didn't do, you were who you were at that time. You chose to be the person you were. at that time. And because you chose to be the person that you were at that time, there were additional consequences, good and bad, that came from that. And that's when I started to realize that instead of arguing, like with, especially when you're reflecting, instead of arguing with who was right, who was wrong, who offended who first, and all these different things, the fastest way to glean lessons and move forward is acceptance. Accepting that you played a part, and that part that you played, regardless if you want to blame-agize, point the finger at somebody else, is the part that you chose to play. And what that does is it begins to set the foundation for me and hopefully for you, um, that I'm going to choose to play different parts, regardless of what the outcomes are. I'm going to choose to be compassionate and forgiving and move forward in life, regardless of what the consequences are, regardless of what the results are, because that's who I'm choosing to be. I no longer want to be reactive to life. Life is too short to be reacting to everything, waiting for something to happen so that you can choose to do something. I'm just going to make the choices to be Billy, the person that I want to be, and strive to continue to grow and allow the foundation that I set, not even just from this day forth, but continue to establish the foundation of accepting who I am, and being who I authentically want to be. So that's what I have for you guys tonight in regards to acceptance. Um, I hope you guys have enjoyed this Wednesday word. We do have content coming later this week. We have one more thing on the first row this week that will be on Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll be the April segment of Financial Matters. We're doing debt to income, which is credit 101. It's an hour-long segment. If you have questions regarding credit, definitely tune in live. If you don't have questions regarding credit and you try to get your credit right, definitely tune in live. And if you can't catch it live, definitely catch the replay. But other than that, we had a great show last night on the Men's Circle. If you're a man and you would love to catch up on that content, please head over to First Row on youtube.com or youtube.com/first row. And you can watch last night's show. It was a really good show about leading the vision. And then that's all I got for you guys. The next time you will see me will be this Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until the next time, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. I'm always happy to engage with you in the live chat. I'm always happy to engage with you. For the first 7 days of the content is up on the First Row in YouTube. I will engage with you there. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the first row.